तुम बता देना। Good morning. On behalf of the Nehru Science Centre and the National Council of Science Museum, Ministry of Culture, Government of India, it gives us immense pleasure to welcome you all for today's lecture. We have with us Professor Vasant Shinde, who on behalf of the Nehru Science Centre and the National Council of Science Museum, and also the respected Government of India, member of the governing body of the National Council of Science Museum. He is here with us. He'll be speaking on the Rakhigarhi excavation. I'm sure you must have, for the past 1 or 2 months, couple of months back, you must have heard, we must have read in about the Rakhigarhi excavation. It so happens that for the first time, I mean, at least in my memory, I saw the science news getting covered on the front pages of the Times of India. And that news was nothing but the excavation of the Rakhigarhi. Professor Shinde was the former Vice-Chancellor of the Deccan College. He has about 4 decades of experience in teaching, primarily in Deccan College. He has excavated sites in Maharashtra, Rajasthan. Of course, now for the past 7-8 years, he has been excavating the Rakhigarhi site, which is in the news. Professor Shinde has an honor of working with Oxford, Cambridge, universities in US, universities in Japan, Korea, and several other things. He has guided more than 40 research students, has several books and publication, hundreds of publications, both national and international, to his credit. I'm not going to stand before you and Professor Vasant Shinde. Sir, may I, on behalf of the Nehru Science Centre and the National Council of Science Museum, request you to please deliver your lecture, sir.
Namaste. Thank you very much, Dr. Siva Prasad Kennedy. I'm extremely happy to come online and talk about the excavations at Rakhigarhi. Let me tell, before I begin, let me tell the audience about the Nehru Science Centre. Now, this center is very important in the country because they're trying to take science to every home, and they are making efforts to generate the scientific temper in the country. And I'm extremely happy to be associated with these type of centers. They're trying to blend the modern science and the ancient science, and that is really required for the country. So I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Kenneth and all the other staff of the Nehru Science Centre, and particularly Saket, because he is arranging all these important online meeting. I welcome all the people online, and I will certainly begin with the Namaste tradition. Now the world has realized the importance of this Namaste tradition, and let me tell the audience that this particular tradition was started by the Harappans. There is a site called Kalibanga in the Saraswati basin, and this site has produced some terracotta figurines, human terracotta figurines, showing in Namaste position. So this tradition goes back to the Harappan times, and today the entire world has realized the importance of, because of the corona virus, the importance of this particular Indian tradition. So with this, I will start my presentation. Now, friends, let me show you the team, excavation team at the site of Rakhigarhi. Now, this work was carried out in collaboration with the Haryana State Department of Archaeology, and there were a number of scientists from different parts of the world which were associated with this excavation for carrying out some scientific analysis, and we have published some of the important scientific analysis. Now, all of you know that the Harappan civilization was discovered in 1920s. The excavation started at the site of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro simultaneously in 1920s. And some of the, of course, this was done under the direction of the then Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, Sir John Marshall. But some of the Indian scholars like Rakhigarhi Banerjee, Madhav Swarup was, they have contributed immensely in unraveling the history of the Harappan civilization. Now today, this year, in fact, we are celebrating 100 years of the discovery of the Harappan civilization. Let me tell you the importance of the discovery. In fact, in 1920s, it was, the excavation started in 1920, but the actual identification of the Harappan civilization, Harappan culture, was made in 1924. In fact, the first paper announcing the discovery of the Harappan civilization was published on 20th September 1924 in Illustrated London News by Sir John Marshall. And that is how the world came to know about the discovery of the Harappan civilization. So that is one important, and this was considered to be the most important archaeological discovery in the world in that time. And we have been working on this Harappan civilization for last almost 100 years, and we have generated enough data to discuss about the life of the Harappans, some of the social organizations, maybe political organization of the Harappan people, Harappan culture. And exactly after 100 years, we have made a major breakthrough research on the Harappan people. For the first time, we have discussed about who are the Harappan people, because these are some of the questions which were not answered scientifically by the scientific community, and therefore this is considered to be the most important breakthrough research. So that has come exactly after 100 years. Now we use two terms. One is the Harappan culture, and the other one is Harappan civilization. When it comes to the culture, the time span of this particular culture now is from 5500 BC to 1500 BC. This is the entire time span of the Harappan culture. And there is one phase of the Harappan culture from 2600 BC to 1900 BC, which is the most prosperous phase of the Harappan culture, in which we see the development of urbanization. Cities and towns were developed. And that particular phase is called the phase of the civilization. So, these are the two important terms that no one should understand. Then when it comes to the Harappan culture or Harappan civilization, there are at least four different terms used for the same culture, same civilization. When it was discovered or identified at the site of Harappa, it was called the Harappan culture, Harappan civilization. And later, the research was mainly around the site of Mohenjo-daro, which was the biggest Harappan city that time. And number of sites were located in the Indus River basin. And most of the then scholars thought that the Harappan culture or civilization is confined to the Indus basin. And therefore they say that instead of calling it as Harappan culture or civilization, let's use the term Indus culture or Indus civilization. And after 1950s, when the Indian scholars, particularly Amlananda Ghosh and his colleagues from the Archaeological Survey of India, they discovered a number of sites in the Saraswati basin. Then it was clear that that this particular culture or civilization was not confined to the Indus River basin, and it is going beyond that. And still, some of the scholars believe that the Saraswati basin is a part of the greater Indus River basin, and therefore the term like Indus Valley civilization was introduced by some scholars. And in 80s, because by 80s, the distribution of the Harappan civilization, the Harappan culture was very clear. And we noticed many sites in the Saraswati basin. Today, if you see the scenario, nearly 2/3 of the Harappan settlements are located in the Saraswati basin. And therefore, some of the Indian scholars, they thought that, it is not right, or we do not just do the justice to the Harappan civilization. And therefore, the word, Saraswati should be also included in the term. And therefore, Indus Saraswati civilization, this particular term was used after 1980s. So these are the 3-4 different terms which are being used for the same culture. And it definitely, creates a lot of confusion for the students or the common people who are not really specialized, specialists in the subject. And therefore, to avoid this confusion, we stick to the basics and we go back to the first term that is used in fact by the archaeologists, that is the Harappan culture and Harappan civilization. And this is the, this is the logic in fact, which we use in fact in archaeology. Whenever a culture is discovered at any site, that particular culture is, named after that site, that village, or maybe river basin. So we are going back to the basics of archaeology, and therefore we are using the term Harappan culture and the Harappan civilization. Now, many of you may not be aware that the reconstruction of the Harappan history is very much biased, because the history is based on the data coming from mainly from Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Rakhigarhi, and Dholavira. These are the sites which are excavated on large scale, and these are the sites which were the Harappan cities. And friends, let me tell you that we have discovered nearly 2,000 or more than 2,000 Harappan sites today, and out of 2,000 there are only 5 Harappan cities, and there may be 1 dozen Harappan towns, whereas most of the other settlements, they are in different categories. There are large number of Harappan villages or the farming settlements. There are Harappan ports. There are Harappan maybe manufacturing centers, even small temporary settlements. So these are the different categories. And we archaeologists, Harappan archaeologists, have not really excavated the sites of different categories on large scale. We have only, maybe excavated sites of the, Harappan cities on large scale. And what we know today is the city life of the Harappan people. But we do not have really holistic understanding about the Harappan history. And therefore, I believe that, this is the biased reconstruction of the Harappan history. And therefore, from here onward, we need to give more emphasis on studying the small site, or small site archaeology needs to be done, so that we generate more data to reconstruct the holistic Harappan history. And then you will ask me why then I am excavating the Harappan city again, because even though I know the problem, why I am doing this particular site. So let me tell you that when I was excavating a Harappan town called Farmana, which is in the same Saraswati basin, roughly 30 kilometers away from the site of Rakhigarhi. And I excavated that site for 4 years. And every year, in fact, I used to take the students to Rakhigarhi to show the site, in fact, to the students. And every time I used to go there, I used to, notice that there is more and more encroachment happening on the site, more destruction happening to the site, even though the major part of the site is protected by the Archaeological Survey of India. People still, were destroying the site. And I realized that, if we do not start the research at this particular site, perhaps one day we will lose the greatest Harappan city, or perhaps the greatest maybe cultural treasure of the country. And therefore, I decided to go to the site of Rakhigarhi and start the excavation. Of course, I have excavated, maybe 3 or 4 small sites, and they have certainly produced very important evidence, which we have used for reconstructing the history of the Harappan culture and the Harappan civilization. Now we had 3 major goals, in fact, at the site of Rakhigarhi. These are the research goals I'm talking to you. Besides these 3 research goals, it is also proposed to develop the site from tourism point of view also. And there are 2 aspects of the tourism point of view development. One is that we are planning, we are not done that so far, we are planning to excavate part of the city. We are not really planning a large scale excavation, because we know that it will be difficult to manage this large scale excavation, because there will be great challenge for all of us to preserve the structures that will be excavated. And here most of the structures are either mud structures or mud brick structures. And in India, in fact, we do not have specialty in the protection and preservation of the mud brick or the mud structures in the country. When I visited the site of Mohenjo-daro twice, first I visited Mohenjo-daro in 2012, and I noticed that the site was really in a bad state. And again, I was invited in 2017, and that time I could notice that even though most of the structures at Mohenjo-daro are made of burnt bricks, it is very difficult for Pakistan government and for the Pakistan archaeologists to maintain that site. And even the World Heritage, which has given the status of the World Heritage Site, that committee has threatened the government that unless you take care of the site, we will withdraw the status. So we don't want, and we know, maybe we have quite good understanding about the Harappan or the city type of the Harappans. So even if we excavate the site on large scale, we are going to generate the same kind of data that as we have in fact at the site of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. So we do not want to excavate the site on large scale. But we are targeting the research-based excavation at the site. So only the excavation is undertaken to maybe take care of the research problem that we have. So the first problem that we have, research problem, is that we had no idea about the total area of the site. There were different opinions. In fact, some of the scholars say that maybe it is 50 hectares, some say that maybe it is 80 hectares, some say that maybe it is more than 200 hectares. So these were the guesswork done by the some of the earlier archaeologists, and nobody tried to really calculate the total area scientifically. So we spent 2 years, in fact. We started the excavation at the site, the research work at the site in 2011. And 2011 and 12, these 2 years, we spent only in calculating the total area of the site. And before this calculation, the site of Rakhigarhi was placed 3rd largest Harappan city. The first was the site of Mohenjo-daro, the second was the site of Harappa, and third was the site of Rakhigarhi. And today, the area that we have calculated, much larger part of that, of course, is destroyed by the local people. But we have done this scientific calculation, and the total area is coming to around 550 hectares. So this is almost double the size of Mohenjo-daro. But still, we are not really excited, because we don't know whether this total area that we see today, whether that area was brought under occupation at one and the same time, or gradually, from period to period. That is not clear, and we are working on this particular aspect. So this is one very, very important problem that we have already worked on. The second problem was to understand the transformation from culture to civilization, from the beginning of the Harappan culture to the civilization state of the Harappan culture. And this was the ideal candidate, the site of Rakhigarhi, because we have the early Harappan phase. As अच्छा शेयर नहीं किया अभी हाँ नहीं मैं कर रहा हूँ मैं कर रहा हूँ हाँ आई एम डूइंग दैट so because we know that this particular site has the early Harappan phase, and I was mentioning that there are three phases of the culture identified. One is the early Harappan phase, which is roughly from 5500 BC to 2600 BC. The second, of course, is the the what we call as the mature Harappan, or the phase of the Harappan civilization. That is from 2600 BC to 1900 BC. And then, of course, there is a decline phase of the decadent phase of the Harappan culture, which is from 1900 BC to 1500 BC, and that phase is called the late Harappan phase. So here, in fact, at the site of Rakhigarhi, we have a thick deposit of the early Harappan and also of the Harappan civilization phase, and therefore, it was easy for us to study the transformation from the beginning to the civilization phase. Then we also want to understand who are the Harappan people, because as far as the origin of the Harappan culture is concerned, there are different hypotheses given by different scholars, and we did not have sufficient maybe scientific data to talk about the Harappan people. So some people say that maybe people came from the west, particularly from Mesopotamia, and these are the people who established the Harappan culture and Harappan civilization in the Indian subcontinent. Some say that maybe people came from maybe Middle East, maybe from Iran, from Steppe region, etc. And but there was no scientific data on that, and therefore we wanted to resolve this particular issue, and therefore we undertook the DNA research at the site of Rakhigarhi. So we have some idea about the Harappan people today, and also so this DNA research, even though a lot of scholars tried earlier, they did not succeed, but perhaps this is the first time that we have succeeded in getting the DNA of the Harappan people, and we can shed some light on the Harappan people. And lastly, how do these people look like? This also was a big question. And for the first time, we used this forensic science to understand or to reconstruct the 3D feature of the Harappan people. So I'm going to show how the Harappan people also look like. So these were some of the major research goals that we had, and we have achieved quite great success in this. Then we also have used a lot of scientific methods for recording, for analysis of data, and also scientific methods like GPS survey, ground penetration radar survey, then DNA research, DNA science research, then forensic science research. Then we have also undertaken the stable isotope, starch grain, and residue analysis of the Harappan people. I'm going to discuss that part in great detail later. So in this map, you can see the Harappan area and also the contemporary Mesopotamian area. So here, the portion that you see in red, mostly the Harappan culture and civilization spread in the northwest part of the Indian subcontinent. So it covers, some parts of Pakistan, like, Sindh area, Balochistan, and Punjab province of Pakistan. And in India, the Harappan sites are located from the Jammu, to through Punjab, Indian part of Punjab, then entire Haryana, then the western part of Rajasthan, entire Gujarat, and up to the Gujarat and Maharashtra border. So this is the area in Patna, and on the western side, now it is up to the Makran coast. So very large area, in fact, more than almost 2 million square kilometer area was occupied, which is almost double the size of Pakistan. And here, in fact, in the map, you can see, in fact, in green, this is the area of the contemporary, this Sumerian or the Mesopotamian civilization. The Mesopotamian civilization was confined, of course, to a very small area, maybe, between Tigris and Euphrates in Iraq, and also part of Iran, the Elam region of Iran. So similarly, in this map, the area of the Egyptian civilization is not clear, but Egyptian civilization also was very small, mostly in the middle of the, this Nile River. Whereas the the Harappan civilization was truly international right from the beginning. We see the Harappan sites, up to the Iranian border in the north, up to the western part of UP, to the east, up to the Gujarat and border, Maharashtra border in south, and the Makran coast. So very large area was, brought under occupation by the Harappan people. And let me also tell you that over this area, almost 2 million square kilometer area, the Harappans at one stage, they integrated, the entire Harappan, culture, and they created, in fact, the uniform or the standardized, culture over such a large area. In the early Harappan phase, there were a number of regional, maybe early Harappan cultures. So they integrated all these, regional early Harappan cultures and created sort of empire or a nation, in fact, around 2600 BC, perhaps the earliest anywhere, in fact, in the world. So this is the area of the Harappan culture. And today, after the partition, there were only two sites on the Indian side. One was the site of Rangpur in Gujarat, in the Saurashtra part of Gujarat here, and the other was the Kotla Nyang Khan in Punjab. These were the two sites known on the Indian side after the partition, and most of the other sites went to Pakistan. But today, let me tell you, because of the efforts of the Archaeological Survey of India and various universities like Deccan College, Kurukshetra University, Baroda University, and various other universities, today we can see that there is a large number of sites discovered on the Indian side. And out of 2,000 sites that have been discovered so far, nearly 1,500 sites are located on the Indian side, and maybe 500 sites on the Pakistan side. So you can see that the larger part of the Indian northwest part of the part of India was brought under occupation. So from this map, you can get the idea, in fact, what was the total area. We have some sites, mostly along the Makran coast, and there are 30 sites, in fact, here. Hello? क्या प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है कुछ? दोबारा रिकनेक्ट करेंगे क्या? साकेत, मुझे बताओ कहाँ तक वो क्लियर था? हेलो? हेलो? नहीं, अभी क्या करना है? वो फिर से शुरू करना है क्या? ओके, वो मुझे ठीक है, बताओ। तो डिस्कनेक्ट करना है अभी? ठीक है, ठीक है। So I'm talking about the area of the Harappans. From this map, you can get the idea we can get idea about the total area of the Harappan, the culture. And that this particular part is very important. The Gagar-Hakra river basin, which is identified as the Saraswati basin. Now this part is very important because nearly 2/3 of the Harappan settlements located so far, they are located in this particular area. So very vast area was really brought under occupation Harappan people, which is located in the desert part of Gujarat, in Kutch part of Gujarat. There is a small island called Khadir Island, on which this site is located. So these are the 5 Harappan cities, and as I mentioned earlier, that we have reconstructed the history of the Harappans on the basis of data coming from Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira, and Rakhigarhi. So it is certainly not the complete reconstruction of the Harappan lifestyle. Then also I can let me tell you that the Harappans were not the only people living that time in the Indian subcontinent. You can see from this map, you can get clear-cut idea that entire Indian subcontinent was under occupation. The Harappa Hello. Okay. So sorry for the disturbance. नहीं 20 मिनट का खत्म करना है नहीं तो ज्यादा टाइम लगेगा ठीक है so I'm just I want to show this slide to indicate some of the important sites that have been excavated in fact in the Saraswati basin, and also you can see the location of the site of Rakhigarhi. So perhaps since the site we have limited time, I will just rush up a little bit. But you may be wondering why the Saraswati basin was so important for the Harappans. And from this slide, you can get the idea that this is one of the most fertile units in fact in the world. And you can see this is also well watered because of the fertility of the region and well water area. The Harappans have prepared this particular, and the rivers are not really ferocious like Indus River. Indus River is gets frequent floods, and the settlements are frequently threatened by the floods. But here the rivers are very safe, and also the area is very very fertile and well watered. Because of that, we get large number of sites. Now in this map, you can see the location of the. I'm coming to the site of Rakhigarhi now. Rakhigarhi is located on the one of the major tributaries of Saraswati, that is Dushavati, and today the Dushavati is known as Chautang River. So this is the course of that river, which is reconstructed, and you can see the location of there are different mounds, different maybe localities of the Harappans at the site of Rakhigarhi, and the earlier scholars had identified 7 localities. And we have discovered 2 more localities. So there are 9 localities. So this is the area, the map of the location of the different Harappan mounds at the site of Rakhigarhi. And this is the aerial photograph of the site of Rakhigarhi, the main part of the site of Rakhigarhi. You can see the open area that you are seeing here. This is the part which is protected by the Archaeological Survey of India. This part also is protected by the Archaeological Survey of India. Whereas there's a mound here, which is not visible, which is under the modern occupation. So there's one more maybe locality here, and maybe the most important part of the locality is here. This is called mound number 4, and today almost 5,000 people are living on this particular mound. So we know that this particular mound cannot be excavated. So this gives you idea about the site. And a lot of people may be wondering what is the nature of the site. Now ancient sites, particularly from the beginning of the settled life till maybe modern times, the ancient sites are in the form of mounds like this. You can see here, this is a part of the mound, and these are the artificial mounds formed because of the human activities. And here, people have lived at one and the same spot, maybe for 3,000 years or 4,000 years. Because of these activities, people, this type of mounds have formed. In fact, at the end of the settlement, people have deserted the site, and then whatever structures were there, in fact, they started falling, and because of the wind and other activities, they were covered, by the soil, and ultimately, we see this type of mounds. And we excavate this type of mounds, and we get the traces of the human activities in these mounds. And there are different levels, in fact, which maybe you can see in the next slide. This is the part of the mound, which is mound number 4. You can see quite high this part, and this is mound number 2. Of course, we did some excavation here. And this is the portion of the site which is cut by the people. But from this, you can see the nature of the archaeological mounds. Firstly, the color of the soil is whitish. Here you can see that people are walking. You can see the white trail here. And here, I don't know whether you can see, but there are different levels you can see. So these levels indicate different generations at one and the same site, occupied generation after generation. So this is how the ancient mounds look like. And then, as I mentioned, that we did some scientific studies. We employed some latest geophysical methods to record the site, the total area of the site. So this was one method, by which we prepared the maps. We use the total station, which is very advanced method for recording this type of landscape. So we have done that. And we have generated good maps of the site. In this picture you can see this is the satellite imagery of the site of the whole village, and you can see the 3D creation of the contour maps of the ancient site. And in the lower map you can see more or less the total area. So this is a large area, in fact, which was occupied by the Harappans. Only small portion of that is surviving today. The gray portion that you see in the picture here, that is the area which is under the modern occupation. So you can imagine how much the area is under the modern occupation, and the area on the periphery outside, that is all flattened by the farmers. They have converted the site into agricultural field. So in that process, a lot of portion has been destroyed. Then also, we did the scientific. We wanted to understand, the different activity areas on different mounds, because there are 9 mounds, and what activities were carried out in each mound, that we wanted to understand. And there is a method called sampling method. So we have gridded the entire site, or the part of the site which is visible and which is intact. Only that part is properly gridded, and we believe whatever remains are found on the surface, they give some idea about what activities were carried out, in fact, immediately below that. So we have got quite good success in that. So we did this first on the surface, and later we got some evidence like this. We have got the evidence about the different activities. We presume maybe a gate here, Then a lot of evidence about the carnelian working, about the copper working, the distribution of the pottery. So from that, we can get even distribution of the terracotta bangles and other material. From that, we can visualize perhaps which part of the site was made for the manufacturing purpose. And later, we carried out the excavation. We made the hypothesis on the basis of the surface collection first, and later, we carried out the excavation of the site. And we found that most of our hypothesis that was built on the basis of surface collection, it come out, turn out to be true. And I was also mentioning about the other method, the ground penetration radar method, which we did at the site of Rakhigarhi. And this is a very, this instrument looks small, but it scans the vertical area of the site, and the scanning can be effective to a depth of 25 meters. So we could get some idea by doing this. We have scanned the whole site, and we could get idea about the nature of the evidence that is likely to be found in the lower levels or underground. And also to support this particular, we also undertook the electrical resistivity survey. And from that also, we can get some idea about the nature of the structures or the features below the ground, which is not visible. So what we did, in fact, we set up a total station of this our GPR station, in fact, at the site, and we use that for receiving that particular instrument which you saw, that sends the maybe transmission in the ground. And then of course we have a receiver here. We get the idea about what is the nature of the structures below. Whenever there is a structure or feature, you get different maybe wave there, and that is how we come to know that there is some feature there. And then of course we receive that in our receiver, and then we have the control system, and that data is passed on to our laptop. And then finally we get these type of features. Perhaps from this you cannot make out, but certainly we can make out what are the, like today like here, in fact we can see a big building, in fact below the ground, which is not visible from the surface. And this particular feature could be identified only because of the survey that we undertook at the site. So these modern methods were used on a very large scale. And this is how and we know that mound number 4, which is the most important part of the site, now that cannot be excavated. But to get idea about the different activities carried out on that particular mound, we are using this vertical GPS survey on very large scale, GPR and the electricity resistivity survey. And from that, certainly without excavation also, we can try to understand the different activity areas, and maybe we can try to get as much information as possible by using this particular method. So we are using this method at the site of Rakhigarhi. Then the next problem that was to study the transition from early Harappan to the Harappan civilization phase. And here we can see, maybe I don't know, from this we can get the idea. We did what is called as the indexed range. We started on top of the mound, and we dug it till the natural level, which is here. So the total deposit is almost 24 meter deposit here, and no other Harappan site has such a thick deposit. Hello? But now it is no. Let's continue as long as it is working. डिस्कनेक्ट करने के बाद फिर से हम रिकनेक्ट कर सकते हैं ना उसको. हाँ ठीक है तो रिकनेक्ट है. So you let me know. So I was discussing about the nature of the evidence, structural evidence in the lowermost levels, which is like this, in the form of the pit dwellings, circular pit dwellings, or circular huts. That is how the Harappans began, in fact, their lifestyle, in fact, in the early stage. And in the next stage, they built overground structures like rectangular structures. And now you can see, maybe this is a part of the bathroom, and you can see the use of the typical Harappan bricks in the ratio of 1:2:3. Even the Harappan, this tandoor, exactly same tandoor continues on today. So this type of, there is a, gradual transition from maybe the peat dwellings to these structures. And then, of course, in the next level, of course, it becomes a well-planned settlement. You can see here the evidence from the site of Farmana. This indicates, that at some stage there is a modicum of planning, and typical Harappan planning, in fact, comes into existence. And then, of course, I will show you the typical Harappan planning, in fact, coming into existence. A full-fledged Harappan urbanization, full-fledged Harappan city, well-developed cities with north-south and east-west running main streets, small streets, lanes, by-lanes, and structures on either side of these streets and lanes and by-lanes. So this is the evidence that we find. In fact, there's a gradual growth in the structural activities. So from simple peat dwellings, the journey to the well-planned cities is really a very long journey, and we have evidence, in fact, in this respect. Then also, we carried out. This is the limited excavation, in fact, we did at the site of Rakhigarhi to check, whether the hypothesis that we have built on the basis of the surface collection, whether that is true or not. And then, we found that we had hypothesized that, the mound number 2 was the main craft manufacturing area. And in the excavation, we found, actually in different levels, the furnaces and the platforms, working platforms, are very strong evidence about the manufacturing activities in that particular area. So these are the close-up of that. Also, we found one part of the granary at the site of Rakhigarhi, which we have excavated partially. But you can see most of the structures at Rakhigarhi, they are made of only mud brick structures. The burn bricks are used only for the drainage and the wells at the site, not for building the walls of the structures. So this is also important evidence that we find at the site of Rakhigarhi. And then, of course, the transition also is visible, in fact, in their ceramic also, the pottery. This is the kind of pottery that we get, in fact, in the early levels, and very crude and handmade. In between, of course, it becomes close to the Harappan pottery. This is the pottery from the middle level of the early Harappan. And then it is transformed into proper classical Harappan pottery in the beginning of the Harappan civilization phase. So this is how there is a transition in the ceramic also. So this similar transition is also being studied in their other material culture, like beads in their bangles, seals, and ceilings. So that is going on. But at least these two examples give idea that the Harappan civilization has developed gradually from the early Harappan phase. So the early Harappan phase is considered to be the formative stage of the Harappan culture. And then I come to the most important part about the excavation of the cemetery at Rakhigarhi. The cemetery is usually located 1 kilometer away from the settlement. And here, we did very systematic and scientific excavation of the barrier. In fact, we did not succeed in getting DNA from the cemetery at Farmana because maybe our methods were maybe not correct, and that we have taken care of those methods, and we have changed our strategy at the site of Rakhigarhi. So what we did, we have, of course, this is the area of the cemetery. But what we did, we took proper precaution before the excavation. I will suggest that any burial site should be excavated by taking this type of precaution, which we have not taken at the site of Farmana. So this is not a Corona warrior, in fact. He is more like a Rakhigarhi DNA warrior, And we have taken really proper precaution. We have used this type of head cap, goggle and mask, then disposal gowns, disposal gloves and gloves, and also one maybe brush and tool separate for this burial. The same tools will not use for the other burials for the excavation. And we use plastics for keeping the bones. And what we did, in fact, we excavated the burial. We did not excavate the entire cemetery at one and the same time. We excavated the 40 burials, but one by one. So we were advised to use this type of take this type of precaution. And then, of course, we were also we also took proper precaution for the for preventing any contamination of the site. And by using this, we have excavated all the burials. So these are the warriors at Rakhigarhi who are excavating the burials. And because we took the precaution, very, my detailed precaution of the excavation to prevent any kind of contamination, we were finally, successful in getting DNA. So while excavating, we have taken the precaution. Then we also did a lot of collection of the samples. This is how the burials, the skeletal remains look like in some of the burials. We do not have complete burials in all the burial, all the pits, but some of the burials are quite intact. Then, of course, I'm not going to discuss in detail, but we had published an article about the Harappan lovers, in fact, probably husband and wife. So this is that burial. Maybe because of shortage of time, I'm not able to discuss this in detail, but this is a close-up of that burial. So we get a number of different kinds of burial. There are some quite rich burial, some are quite poor in terms of the material that is placed around the dead bodies. So in some cases we find maybe one or two pots. In some cases like this, we find number of pots. So that denotes the social status or the economic status of the person. So this type of evidence is found at the site of Rakhigarhi and also other Harappan sites. We also had plan B. Suppose we fail in getting DNA from the Harappan skeletal remains. Then we have done very detailed sampling, and it is usually believed that that after the death, every human being has the parasite eggs in the body, and after the death, the parasite eggs survive. And the Koreans have really they have extracted these parasite eggs from the ancient burials, and they have reconstructed the DNA of the person. So we also wanted to collect the samples, and we have not really left any stone unturned. So whatever is possible, we have done at the site of Rakhigarhi. But my suggestion that at every burial site, one should take proper precaution. One should do this type of detailed sampling. And once these samples are brought to the laboratory, we send these samples to the Deccan College laboratory. And there also for maybe uncovering, for maybe cleaning them, we have taken the same precaution as we did in fact in the field. So this type of precaution is very much required, because otherwise the modern DNA of the modern people can easily get into the DNA of the ancient people. So we wanted to avoid that at the site of Rakhigarhi. And we did this type of systematic study. Right? The samples were transported to Deccan College laboratory. There we did the entire anthropological examination. We have already done this. We have published part of that. Then we also have done the CT scanning, because CT scanning data is very much required for reconstructing the facial feature of the Harappans. That is called the craniofacial reconstruction of the Harappans. Then also we did the paleoparasitology sampling, which was not successful, but we have done sampling that. And then of course the samples that we have extracted, they were used for DNA analysis, DNA extraction. We finally succeeded in getting DNA from one or two skeletal remains. And also we have done the stable isotope analysis. From the stable isotope analysis, we can talk about the health of the people and also about the diet of the people. So this is what we have done. And there is so much information that one can extract from the ancient skeletal remains. Not only that, we get a lot of data, in fact, in the burials, but from the bones also. The bones can be, subjected to the various scientific examinations, analysis, and they provide really a lot of data for understanding the health, diet, and what the people. So that is what we have done, in fact, at the site of Rakhigarhi. Then this is a sample, which this is the lady, burial of a lady around 35 years old, and this lady has given us very strong DNA. In fact, we have found DNA in other skeletal remains which are very faint. The signatures are so big that we were not able to get any maybe insight from those samples. But finally, we got very strong DNA from this, and from that, we can make a lot of assumptions. This lady is quite tall, was beautiful because she has a very sharp features, and probably from a very affluent family because you can see so many pots around the dead body. So probably she had very good status in maybe economic status as well as social status in the society. And the analysis that we did, in fact, I would like to maybe mention about this. Usually it is believed that the Aryans came from outside, from the Steppe region, and they came into the Indian subcontinent, and these are the people who developed the Harappan culture and the Vedic culture. Also, there was hypothesis that maybe some people came from the Anatolian region. Those people came here and they developed the agriculture here. So that is all really not true. So what we have found, in fact, the genetically Steppe integration in South Asia has not happened until 1000 BC. After 1000 BC, we get more maybe people coming in large number after 1000 BC, but not before that. Furthermore, mixing the steppes was gradual and not sudden, thus reject the invasion or the replacement of the local South Asian with the steppes. Steppes have arrived to India and mixed with the local population and exchanged their genetic material, but not their ancestry, knowledge, and the culture. What is interesting that the ancestry which was developed here, that has remained intact, from the beginning till modern times, and at no stage the ancestry was disconnected or broken at any stage. So that is also important. We have also observed that there was a great deal of variance due to differential mixing with diverse local populations. The increase of steppes in South is probably due to much concentration of steppes at the region after 1000 BC. Steppes are the far, maybe pastorals from the Central Asia. We are also ruling out large-scale spread of farmers with Anatolian roots into South Asia on the basis of the DNA research. The centerpiece of the Anatolian hypothesis, that movement of people from the West brought farming into this region, and with it, the Indo-European languages. Since no substantial movement of the people occurred, this is checkmate for the Anatolian hypothesis. One mistake that we have done, in fact, in both the papers, paper which is published in Science and Sail, is that we have mentioned that that the Indo-European languages were brought after 2000 BC. This because we do not have any evidence about the date of the origin of the Indo-European language. Also, we do not know where exactly the Indo-European languages are originated. But we have gone with the flow, and we have mentioned that. Now we realize that that is a mistake that we have done, in fact, in both the papers. We are also ruling out large-scale spread of farmers. That is okay. Then also in this cell paper, you will see that the distinct ancestry of South Asians was developed around 10,000 BC, around 12,000 years ago. What happens, the hunter-gatherers at this stage, they broke into two branches. One went to Iran, and there they got mixed up with the Anatolian farmers. And one came to South Asia. And here, of course, we have some, since both the groups have the common ancestry, we find some elements of that common. But here they were, developing a distinct ancestry. And that ancestry has survived, in fact, in the Andaman area. The Andaman is today, They are the real, maybe indigenous people of South Asia. So it is surviving. So what we get, in fact, around 12,000 years ago, the distinct South Asian ancestry was developed, and then that ancestry continues, till the Harappan period, and from Harappans till modern times. So in Rakhigarhi samples, we found out that the Harappans were not carrying any genetic signature from Iranian-related ancestry, nor from Steppe-related ancestry. This is extremely fascinating and indicative that agriculture in South Asia was invented and practiced by the indigenous population. This sets aside the previous belief that farming was brought by the Iranians. It is also evident that significant movement of Harappans was towards the Central Asia. For the first time, we are reporting out of India theory on the basis of the presence of Harappan-like ancestry in Turkmenistan and Iranian population contemporary to the mature Harappan, period. This discovery has potential to start claiming about the out of India theory. This is very important because we always believe that the Aryans came from maybe Central Asia or Iran, but this study indicates that before the Aryans or before the so-called Aryans, in fact, the Harappans began to move out of India first, because we have in the Turkmenistan skeletal remains at the site of Gonur and at the site of Shari Sokta in Iran. Both of them, these two sites were contributed to the Harappans, and the Harappans had very good contact with both the regions. We found the Harappan ancestry in those skeletal remains, but not their ancestry, in fact, in the Harappan skeletal remains. That means, the Harappans had a very distinct ancestry, and when they began to move towards Iran and then towards Central Asia, they got mixed up with the local population, and that is how the Harappan, ancestry is found in their skeletal remains, but not here. So this is very, very important. Then genetic results indicate that Vedic knowledge was indigenous and not brought by the so-called Indo-Aryans. So just to give some hints about this. So South Asia, perhaps in the world, in fact, is a very distinct area. Different populations were generated. All these people, in fact, what you see, different people, they have the same ancestry. The entire South Asian population, they carry the Harappan ancestry. From Andaman to Kashmir, and from Afghanistan to Bengal, or majority of the South Asians, they carry a very strong Harappan ancestry. And this different, appearance happen, in fact, in the Indian subcontinent, mainly because of maybe the landscape, because of the climate, because of the food habit. These different appearances have occurred in the Indian subcontinent. But perhaps India has such a diverse population right from the beginning, and this is the region which is broadly under the South Asian population, in fact, and South Asian ancestry. The Andaman is the Dravidians, which are large area, then Austro-Asiatic and so-called Indo-European or Indo-Aryan. So all of them have the common ancestry. We do not know much about this region because we are working on that part. So this map gives you idea about the location of the site of Gonur in Central Asia, where some of the skeletal remains were excavated. So we have DNA from some of the skeletal remains from Gonur, and in their skeletal remains we find Harappan ancestry, Harappan genome, and the site of Shari Sokta in Iran. In Shari Sokta also we see the Harappan genome, but not the Harappan, their genome, in fact, in the Harappan population. So that is very important, and that indicates that perhaps the Harappans first began to go out, and there is later maybe reciprocal movement happening in the larger area. Then I move to the next important part, that is the facial reconstruction of the. Hello. नहीं खत्म नहीं. नहीं मैं अभी थोड़ा एक 10 मिनट का और पार्ट है. नहीं मेरा स्लाइड्स आ गया, स्लाइड का मैं दिखा रहा था, स्लाइड्स एक मिनट. I'll just go. Can you see now? दिखाई दे रहा है अभी? Okay, now I will talk about the facial reconstruction that we have done. This is of course done in collaboration with the Korean scientists. And for the facial reconstruction, of course, we need complete skeletal remain. And fortunately, we have done, we have some skeletal remains, which are quite good, quite intact. And you can see the close-up of the facial feature of the, skeletal remain that we excavated. So this is a, 18-year male, a boy, and we also have a 45-year-old woman. In fact, here you can see a complete skeletal remain of a woman, which is around 45 years old. So we have done the facial reconstruction of both, in fact, these. And before the facial reconstruction, of course, we need the, this type of MRI scanning data. We need scanning data to understand the inner morphology of the, skeletal remains. And also we need, the entire, we need the complete detailed measurements of each and every bone which we have done. And then, of course, that was fed in the computer. And finally, the computer had generated the facial feature of the Harappans. For the first time, you are able to see the facial reconstruction of the Harappan people here. This is the, maybe reconstructed skull of the boy. And then slowly, we started putting the muscle and the flesh on that. And finally, the skin is put on that. So this is how the boy looks like. And same is the case with the 45-year-old woman. Same, method was adopted. And this is the facial feature of the woman. And both of them, they look exactly like the modern people in Haryana. So there is a continuity in pattern in the appearance. We have done more, of course, now because of the short of time. I'm not going to discuss all this, but I wanted to show this evidence that for the first time we have done this facial reconstruction of the Harappan people. And you can see that boy exactly looks like, the modern boy looks like the Harappan boy, and the Harappan woman and the modern woman look like exactly the same. So there is a continuity in that. We have also done a lot of this outreach program about which I'm not going to discuss. But finally, now I would like to discuss about the broad conclusions. One is that Harappan culture and civilization developed by the Indian people, about which, of course, I mentioned. There is no Aryan invasion or migration. There's a movement of the people, of course, happening from all directions. People from maybe from Mesopotamia, from Iranian, maybe Gulf region, from Steppe region. They were coming and going. In fact, they were doing business with the Harappans. And there was a lot of mixing happening, in fact, in the Indian subcontinent. But at no stage, the South Asian ancestry was replaced or discontinued at any stage. So that ancestry which was developed maybe 12,000 years ago, that continues till today. That means, there was no maybe large-scale invasion or migration of the people at any stage. So this is very important. So we also can develop, the out of India hypothesis. We need more data, of course, for this, which we are generating. So neither Steppe's pastoral nor Iranian farmers contributed to the development of South Asian ancestry. Ancestry is different, and mixing is different. Mixing was happening, but the ancestry was not really, impacted by the mixing of the people or from different regions. Then major South Asians today are the descendants of the Harappans. And archaeological as well as genetic evidence indicate continuity to today. I wanted to discuss this continuity also in detail, but that also maybe I will not be able to do that. But what is interesting that that we have not really forgotten the Harappan material culture, the Harappan traditions, and even the Harappan lifestyle. So people today, in fact, at Rakhigarhi, they connect themselves to the, to their roots, which go back to the Harappan times. And this is almost in the entire Harappan region. And perhaps, India is one of the few countries, in fact, in the world where we connect ourselves to the past, to our very past, and we connect to our roots. And India, the roots are going back to the Harappan times. Even today, now, if you move around the Rakhigarhi village, you will get the impression that perhaps you are moving in the Harappan village, because the settlement arrangement is exactly like the Harappan, settlement arrangement. Even the material culture used by the people today, they're exactly like the material culture used by the earlier people, by the Harappans. They're producing the same kind of pottery even today. They're producing same kind of Harappan-like beads even today. And a lot of Harappan crafts even continue today. There are a lot of communities in South Asia today who are following the Harappan, what I call as the knowledge system, and they're dependent on this knowledge system. So it is important that we understand this knowledge system and we pass on the knowledge that we have generated to the people to make their life much better. This is what we are doing, and because of this we say we feel that that we have been able to contribute immensely to the Harappan history. So I will also mention that we have developed the rakhigarhi.com website, which will be available soon. We also have the Facebook, the details are available on this. We also have the YouTube channel for the Rakhigarhi. We are also on Twitter and also on Instagram. So you can use this links to get more maybe information from the site of Rakhigarhi. But in brief, I have given you some idea. I'm sorry for the discontinuity and the disturbance happening, because of which maybe some of the important data that I was not able to share with you. But I thank again the organizers, and if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. Yeah. So I have stopped that now. I am visible now. Yeah, I'll be happy to take some questions. If anybody has some questions, I'll be happy to take them. No, we are not. I know somebody asked the question about the chariot, discovery of the chariot, but and the Vedic culture. No, we are not talking about the discovery. So we are not talking. We are not really found any chariot. We are not claiming that here. The Archaeological Survey of India has excavated a site called Sanauli, and there they have discovered a chariot in the burial. But I'm not discussing about that. In Rakhigarhi, we have not found any evidence of that. What is important here that we have done the the facial reconstruction and the DNA studies, and that is giving us very very useful information about the implication of this particular research on the Indian history. So we are talking about that. I have not discussed anything about the Vedic culture also here. So maybe in next lecture maybe I will talk about that in general. Apart from Okay. Shailaja Rani has asked me the question, what are the other techniques that we have used for the, for understanding the maybe statistical analysis of the data, or the collection of data. Now let me tell you that I have not given you a lot of details about that, but the sampling when we did, in fact, we have collected the data from each and every grid, and we have we have done the detailed analysis of the data from that, and we have also the statistical data of the pottery, and also other material cultures, about which I was not able to talk today in great detail. But we have a lot of data available, and that data is helping us in understanding maybe the distribution of the material, their concentration within the site, and that is also helping us in understanding the different activity areas that we have done. Okay, those. Okay, ठीक है, ठीक है. Acha, those who have questions, they might maybe write to me anytime. I will be happy to reply them. Also, you can write on the rakhigarhi.com website also, and certainly we will be happy to supply you information that you require. But I take this opportunity on my behalf. I take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming online, and I also thank the Nehru Science Centre for organizing this lecture. In fact, Nehru, as I mentioned in the initial stage, that Nehru Science Centre is doing really great work, and they're trying to reach the knowledge system, in fact, to every household. And this is the important effort that they're doing. I will appeal all of you, in fact, those who are listening to me, watching me, that you sometimes you visit the Nehru Science Centre. There you can get to know, or rather, there you can see the exhibition of the various scientific development that we have done, and also the contemporary or the ancient knowledge system that we have been discussing. So you should visit them, and I'm sure that you'll get a good idea. Day, day after tomorrow, uh, Monday. On Monday, there is a very important talk by Dr. Anil Kapodkar, well-known scientist of the country, on behalf of the Nehru Science Centre. So you will be really, glad to see him also, and you'll be able to get a lot of information from him. So I hope that all of you will also watch that important program on 11 at 11 o'clock. So this is again organized by Nehru Science Centre. So again, I thank all of you. I thank the Nehru Science Centre, and I thank